He's going to speak to you on some of the industry disruptions that are happening in tech. Obviously, as the president of the tech sector, I can tell you that it is a very disruptive industry with consolidation, with new companies coming up, very exciting. Some of them are actually going to speak tomorrow. But also in the retail buying experience, which is changing every day. And Steve's going to talk about it in a little bit. Steve has a 20-plus year in the history in the tech industry. He actually comes from one of the original disruptive retailers, from Staples, really Boston's very own Staples. And he brings a unique perspective. I know that many of you are familiar with Steve holds no punches and has great opinions and is extremely sharp. The technology industry is lucky to have Steve, and we're lucky to have Steve at NPD. And today you're lucky to hear from him. And so without further ado, Stephen Baker.
Make sure you duck. I'm not sure how to handle that introduction, but thanks, Ian. Appreciate that. Appreciate everyone being here today. I'm not quite as tall as Ian, so these don't have to be quite so high. Excuse me. So thanks for coming. I always like to start my presentations with a thank you for not only just being here, but for being clients and for helping us do what we do. So that's always a great thing for us. So going to talk about disruption and disruptovators. We're going to talk about hardware, and we're going to talk about experience around the hardware. So we're looking at 4 different areas around where we see things being disrupted. The first we call feeling the pressure. Clearly, we've been successful in tech, right? Tech has been a very successful business for many, many years. That's a good thing, right? It's also a bad thing. We're all pretty teched up these days, and how do we continue to be successful as selling organizations, and how do we continue to be successful in getting new products and features out into the marketplace is always a challenge. How do you maintain and add value into the market? Ubiquity probably is self-explanatory. Like I said, we've all got products, we've all got services. How do we get extra value? How do we get extra revenue? How do we make those kind of things work? How do we add value to maintain our businesses, or does the hardware just kind of flop around, right? You know, we had the same hardware before, we're still going to have the same hardware. What's the value proposition as we drive those kind of things up? We see the change in value over and over again, right? Sometimes it's dramatic, sometimes it's incremental, and what that really does to the marketplace when we have dramatic change, and we'll talk about a few opportunities and a few things that are happening. Dramatic change drives sales. Incremental change is pretty boring, I think, for those of us, especially those of us in the tech business, right? And you have to figure out how you're going to fit in, and what's the right point of entry or the point of disruption for you. Is it at the point of dramatic change, or is it at the point of incremental change? So a lot of opportunities around incremental change as well. And then democratization. So one of the great things I think we've definitely seen in the last few years is the flip side of commodities is democratization. The ability to go almost anywhere and buy a smartphone, to buy an iPad, to buy a television. The popular press, the interest level in technology that far exceeds so many other businesses. It is so much of a democratized business. We all need tech to live in the modern society, but how do we sell that, and how are we successful with that? When does the world turn around again, I think, to start to see some of those new opportunities start to show up? And I think if you were there this morning, we were all a little kind of blown a little bit by all the things that Vivek was talking about and what really are the opportunities for the market going forward. So, everybody has one of these things, right? It's not just a smartphone, it's all these other kinds of products. So this is the question and answer period where I'm going to ask everybody else questions. Is there anybody in here who doesn't have a smartphone? I'm going to guess that's not going to happen, right? Anybody who's had a smartphone for less than a year? 3 years? 5 years? It's got to be somebody who's been less than 5 years. So 5 years is 2011, just for purpose there. So, right? Do you know anyone under the age of 70 who doesn't have a smartphone? Have anybody who's under the age of and not count, so let's say also over the age of like 10, all right? Between 10 and 70, is there anybody who doesn't have a smartphone? All right, maybe a couple, but not too many, right? That's pretty much your target market, right? So we've pretty much saturated all those pieces. I could go down the list. Is there anybody here who doesn't have a tablet in their household? Is there anybody here who doesn't have a flat panel television? Well, we got one anti-technology guy over here. I won't use the word Luddite, but it's 2016 and not 1916, right? Okay. Notebook, anybody not have a computer in their house? A notebook, even a desktop? Printer, anybody not have a printer? If you have a desktop, most people have a printer. Streaming video, everybody have streaming video in this room? You see the problem, right? We've got lots and lots of these products. And, if you bought a smartphone 2 or 3 years ago, where are we today? You're probably in a pretty good place. So let me flip that on its side, right? Anybody drop Amazon Prime when the price went from $79 to $99? I'm going to assume I should have probably asked, do you have Amazon Prime, right? Did anybody drop it when the price went from $79 to $99? Okay, how many people have Netflix? How many of you dropped it when the price went from $7.99 to $9.99? We got 2 people here. Thank you, Denise. Cable. Cable's probably the wild card in here. The last time your cable bill went up, how many people dropped cable? We got a few people dropping cable. How about your cell phone subscription? Right? Prices go up on your cell phone subscription. They may give you more data, but they tend to also raise the price. Paul, when was the last time you guys got to sell yesterday's processor for more today than you did yesterday? Or Chris, when was the last time television prices actually went up versus going down? So here's the problem, right? Everybody has a piece of technology. It's great. We all love it. But when we sell the next one, we're not getting any more money for it. We're not driving any more unit volume because pretty much everybody has it. And what are people paying for? They're paying for the content, the experience, the things that our hardware enables. Wasn't like that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. More in those days, it was much more about what do you do with that technology, right? The software really was what drove the hardware. If you had great hardware, you could do pretty much anything. It's a little different world today. And, this is what we see, right? This is the kind of pressure. It's great. There's 4 times as many PCs sold. Price is half of what it was then. So that's one view. The other view is we had lots of televisions. We only went up about 20% in television sales in the last 10 years. Not getting any more money for those. So we need the technology to drive the services, to do all the things that a lot of people have been talking about here. If you were in the retail discussion, talking about what you can do online, if you were listening to Vivek, all those kind of things. We're the ones who enable all that, but once you've got all this stuff installed, you don't often get paid for it in the same way as we used to. So, our homes are filled. If you look around the different product categories, you've got TVs, desktops, tablets. This data comes from our connected intelligence guys. There's really nothing that has this outstanding growth except for streaming video players, where all of a sudden we're going to have a new slug of consumers. Demand for hardware is finite, has a lifespan, but we've been successful at improving our products, and we just can't continue. How do you continue to improve and still generate incremental demand? Would be wonderful if new products followed new products, and we always had those opportunities for green fields, and we don't. We offer better and better products, but that doesn't really help your saturated base any, right? And in fact, there's lots of people who say, I don't always need the next latest and greatest, and they stop and they say, I'm willing to wait 3 years, I'm willing to wait 5 years, as long as what I have today does what I really need it to do. We're not lacking in innovation. I think that's not necessarily the issue. It's just the technology curve slows, right? When the value of what I do with the technology, with the hardware, starts to slow down and the value goes into how fast, how many gigabytes my phone has access to, that changes people's equation and changes their view of what they do with the hardware. So this is a pretty good example of what happens and what dramatic versus incremental change looks like. If you look, it's kind of like every 10 years, it's pretty much of a dramatic change. 64K of RAM to 4 megabytes, that was a pretty big change. 2003 to 2016, we have pretty much maybe the same speed, but very different kind of feature sets on a PC. But in those periods in between, you don't really see a huge amount of change, right? You have an incremental things that happen in between, but at the two edges, right, that gets to be dramatic. Like I said, dramatic changes sell incremental, and that's what's boring, right? That's not something that we're really interested in. Think about phones for a second, okay? We'll talk about some other opportunities and things too, but we can all agree that 2009 to 2013 was probably the highlight of the smartphone market, at least as we know it now. Anybody have any thoughts about what drove that? Was it iPhones? Was it Droids? Was it price declines? It wasn't any of those things. What was the thing that drove people to get new smartphones or get into smartphones? It was clearly LTE, because the experience you had in 2001 on whatever kind of smartphone or whatever kind of phone and data access you had at that point versus the experience you had in 2009 was pretty much the same. Crappy, right? You didn't want to do those things on a phone. It took too long. You would probably break it when you threw it through a wall. That was the stuff you didn't like, right? LTE came in. The value of the hardware increased exponentially, even though the hardware wasn't all that different, right? Yeah, a little nicer screen, a little faster processor. But what drove you and drove everyone to say, now I want a smartphone? It was a much, much better experience. It was not just to have the hardware. So again, more and more we see that that's what's really happening. Incremental changes don't drive huge volumes in a saturated market. Dramatic changes do, but dramatic changes take a long time. And I'll be honest with you, you don't often see dramatic changes. I think one of the other pieces about tech is that we're dealing oftentimes in relatively long time periods, and dramatic changes, you may try to project them out, but I think dramatic changes tend to look really dramatic in the rearview mirror, and when they're happening, they just kind of happen all of a sudden. We could talk about, broadband, for example. If you go back 10 years ago, there was a broadband crisis in the US, right? Nobody had really fast home internet access. And then, all of a sudden, You stopped and looked, and everybody's got 50 megabits into their house, right? Or at least the availability of it. So things changed. The whole market changed, but you didn't see it happen every single year. You saw, I stopped, and all of a sudden we hit a milestone, or you hit something, and that changed your perception. Just like the difference between a 7-pound product in 2003 and 3 pounds in 2016. It's dramatic when you look at it with the sweep of history, and it's incremental and, like I said, kind of boring if you look at it without that. So, as fun and as challenging as all those pieces are, the challenge of pricing never goes away, right? Commoditization drives a bifurcation in the marketplace. You've got premium, you get entry level. It's very, very hard. As the value proposition changes, it tends to wipe out the middle of the marketplace. If you looked even in what we saw before, if we look at smartphones, even just what I talked about with smartphones, right? Everybody went to a premium LTE kind of an experience, but there were still those few Luddites who had regular phones who didn't care. So, but there's nobody in the middle. There was nobody who wanted 3G smartphones in 2013. We all wanted fast as fast as we could get. The commoditization of hardware is just a piece of the shift in the marketplace and the dramatic or incremental changes. It's very, very hard over the long term in technology to support the differentiation that will enable you to have a product at the high end, a product at the low end. It's it's a big challenge. I mean, we've got some great examples here. You know, you can buy, headphones is a great example. 80% of the headphone market is $10. 20% of the headphone market is $150 or $200, and there isn't so much in the middle. You either buy something cheap or you buy something really expensive. Routers is a good example that we're seeing now, but clearly there's some others as well. But the challenge is, how do you make all that stuff work in this kind of a hardware environment? The other thing that it does is it creates democratization, because, look, cheap stuff is going to sell in bigger volumes than more expensive things, right? There's always going to be a bigger customer base for entry level than there is for premium. And if you want to build those markets, if you want to have the ability to sell to the masses, you need to be everywhere, right? You need to be a democratized brand. You can't just be everywhere. When we think of Apple, which is a great example here of a brand that is very premium, but you know, you can't go to a mall and throw a ball down the road, down the middle of it, and not hit at least 3 stores that are selling iPads, and probably a couple that are selling iPhones too, right? They want to be everywhere. They have to be everywhere to get the kind of volumes that they're expecting. They can't just say we're premium. Just being premium doesn't work in these kind of markets anymore. If you're going to be premium, that's great, but it also requires that entry-level piece as well. You need a wider distribution profile in a commoditized marketplace. It's just the way the market works. So, the other piece of democratization is demographics. And if you've heard me talk before, you know I'm not the biggest fan of demographics, and this is kind of the reason why. Because we are a very mass-oriented business. You know, we know people with money will spend more money, people with less money will spend less money, but you know, the differentiation between all those people, not every millennial has a MacBook, not every baby boomer only wants to buy Sony or brands that they're familiar with, not every low-income household only wants to spend their money on a 32-inch television. they want some of those other kinds of things. So just kind of pigeonholing people in there, I think, doesn't always work. The hardware has value, the channel has value, but at the end of the day, if you just kind of think about, I'm going to try to go after one kind of consumer or another kind of consumer, I think you're going to miss an awful lot of people who are potential customers for your business, for your products. And in a market where owning technology is a key piece of the way you exist in society, the same way an automobile, for example, is, then not only do you have to be everywhere, but you have to be able to provide products that are interesting to everybody. And you can't just be in one place because, again, there's plenty of people who are younger who lease BMWs, right? We found ways to get BMWs to more entry-level consumers, and there's plenty of people who don't care about cars, and they're more than willing to drive a 1998 Honda because that's not of value to them. So I think we see the same kind of things in tech, and it gives you some direction, but you can't be certain that that's the way the consumer is going to look. The channels are changing. This comes from our checkout tracking, and we did, I think, a press release or a post on this a little while ago, and I thought this was just really, really interesting. Even if you have a lot of money, that still doesn't mean you're not going to go into a dollar store. The dollar store has stuff that's interesting for you. Neiman Marcus may have some stuff that's interesting to the dollar store customer, probably not as much, agreed. But clearly, again, the idea that you have to be everywhere, that you have to be thinking about both a wide berth for your distribution, a wide berth for your products, at the same time recognizing where the value proposition of those products are. Because again, the difference in value proposition is challenging. I don't think it's always clear what the difference in value is from one product to the next. It's also not clear what the difference from one channel to the next is. Again, this comes from our checkout tracking, and while it's not tech, it looks at apparel. I think it's a good discussion. People shop everywhere, but people don't shop in the middle, right? Experience is important, the channel is important, but you can't just win just on price, and we see this in tech all the time, right? You can win just by being at the bottom of the stack, and we all know a couple retailers who are really good at that. We know a bunch of retailers who can win at the bottom and the top of the stack, but when you're in the middle, you don't win. And increasingly, that is more and more of a difficult place to be. So it's not just commoditized product. It's not just a bifurcation of product. It's a bifurcation and a commoditization of the retail experience as well. And that's especially true around tech, where, again, a $69 tablet and a $300 tablet do pretty much the same things. They may do them with a little better or a little different philosophy around them, but if all you're going to do is watch video, a $39 Amazon Kindle does almost everything that a $500 iPad does. So again, I think you really need to look at what the difference is between those different pieces. So, bunch of different people here. I'm never used to all these picture slides. I'm a line chart and bar graph kind of guy. But when you look at these kind of things, so much of this is a little long tail, right? There's an awful lot of things happening. How do you grow? You've got to find all these different people. You have to find all these different products to be able to sell to them. Experiences sell. Demographics, like I said, I don't feel like sell quite as well, but your value is how do you make your hardware, even in a commoditized hardware market, how do you make that valuable? And what happens when you see those dramatic changes? Clearly you see an uptick. 4K is a great example in televisions of the right tool with the experience, right? I'm willing to pay for that experience. I need the tool. That's going to drive a lot of volume. I want LTE. I need the tool. I'm going to buy a phone that supports that. That's a great combination. When there isn't an incremental value to the experience, then it's very hard, I think, for there to be an incremental value to the hardware. They just can't buy hardware for hardware's sake anymore. We did that because it was always more than an incremental step. It was a dramatic step. Today, that's not necessarily the case. That all sounds kind of depressing, but I don't want it to be. Although I'm always told that I could be a little negative, and I try not to be. I'm actually relatively I've been in tech long enough to know good times and bad times, and I'm actually relatively optimistic about the future. But just because the big markets, the big segments are stagnated, just because the hardware isn't changing dramatically, doesn't mean there aren't pockets within that where there are opportunities. And I would always argue that when you get to a mature, commoditized hardware market where the products are relatively similar, it's an opportunity to segment. It's an opportunity to look for what can I offer that's a little bit different? What can I offer that's unique? How do I get around that? So we've got a couple of pretty good examples here. Right now, gaming is hot. All the PC manufacturers are looking at desktop gaming, at notebook gaming. There's a lot of consumers who are interested in buying it. There's some market share to be taken from video games. There's market share to be taken from guys who maybe were building their own and maybe aren't as interested in doing that anymore. It's not a huge market. It's not lots and lots of units, but it's dollars, and it's going to be growing. And as I said, 4K, of course, is a big opportunity, but let's even think about 65 or 70 or 75-inch televisions. That's a big television. It's not available for everybody. Not everybody's house can fit that. Not everybody is interested in something like that. But right now, when we look at the data, that's where a lot of the growth is. There's a segment of customers who want to upgrade into those kind of things. And I'll tell you, those two categories have very similar profile in terms of being willing to upgrade as well, right? The mass doesn't care. A TV is a TV. When I'm ready for a 55-inch TV, I'll upgrade from my 40-inch TV. Then there's people who say, I had 55 and I want 75. I want a bigger television. There are the gamers who say, I need 5% or 10% extra speed and power, and they're always willing to upgrade. So again, it is all about finding those little niches in stagnant marketplaces that will give you the opportunity to be successful. Give you another one that we actually found in the data that we're actually starting to see sales on. So talked a little bit about broadband and 4K and streaming. So if you're going to stream anybody try to stream 4K Netflix or Amazon around their house? Great experience, right? Probably not so good. Have you bought a router in the last 3 or 4 years? Probably not. So you may be getting 50 megabits into the modem, but you're probably not getting 50 megabits on the wireless from that to your Roku or to your television or to the other things. There's gating factors. And we're seeing all sorts of growth in sales, in routers, in extenders. You got 15 wireless products in your house, and there's somebody up in the bedroom in the corner or in the basement, and the signals don't reach there. So overall, the router market is up a couple of percent. It's not a huge growth business, but you look at the segments, and there are segments that are growing and growing very nicely. So, commoditization doesn't mean disaster. It doesn't mean the end of the world. What it really means is you got to work a little harder, and you have to find what the hardware can attach to. So I would also add at the end of those things are also driven by the experience, right? I want a 4K TV because I want a better picture. I want a 4K, a better router because I want to stream 4K. I want a gaming PC, not so that I can have a PC that's this big in my house, but so that I can get a feature that I really need out of it. So it behooves you not just to look at the hardware and the segments, but think about what are those trends that are driving the segments. What are the sales trends? What are the retail trends? Are there places to sell these kind of products? All those kind of things go together, but there aren't any little opportunities, right? I don't think. There are just big markets, big opportunities proportional to the marketplace. So we started talking about everybody having something. Being more successful is now the challenge of what we're looking at. We've formed this foundation of democratization, ubiquity, accessibility, availability, choice, functionality. Now we have to find a way to more and more attach the hardware to the experience. And hardware is an integral part. We should all have the problem of selling into a market of 40 or 50 or 80 or 100 million units of sales every year. You certainly don't want to forget those kind of things. But without hardware, there's no great experience. And I'm always reminded when I think of that of a line from The Right Stuff, great movie if you haven't seen it, where one of the Washington guys says to the pilots when they're out in the high desert, they're talking about the government putting money in, and the guy, he says, yeah, well, we don't want to deal. I think it's Sam Shepard's playing Chuck Yeager, and he says, yeah, but we don't care about those things, we just want to fly. And the guy says, yeah, but you know, no Bucks, no Buck Rogers. So that's kind of how I think about this. If you don't have the Bucks, if you don't have the hardware, you don't get LTE, you don't get 4K streaming, you don't get anything else. So there's a lot of value there. We just have to find ways to unlock it in conjunction with the experience. So with that, I'm going to end, and a little early. We got 10 minutes. It's always good to be able to end a little early and have some questions.
So you didn't go on the goggles. What about the goggle technology, the Okta, the 3D?
Right. Go ahead.
Here.
Right. Yeah. We got to throw the ball around, the box around. So the question's about 3D. So 3D's kind of cool. I don't know that I would say that 3D is going to be a $10 billion consumer business in 5 years. We're still working on some things. I would actually say the chances of that 3D is more likely to be a great business technology, right? We're going to see augmented reality as much as virtual reality, and big chunks of that are going to help us with manufacturing, design, those kind of things. You know, I'm not Vivek. I don't have the kind of 10-year visions that they have. I'm going to look out a couple of years. There could certainly be things, right? You could sell goggles with movies pre-installed, right? Although that didn't work so well with 3D television. So, you know, I have my questions about whether there's a broad marketplace for consumer virtual reality. The way it's constructed today, could it be constructed differently in a couple of years? Yeah. Could that change things? Sure. But, you know, if you're trying to make your number today or tomorrow, I don't know that 3D is going to be something that's going to drive that. Tim? What about 3D printing? Again, that's probably another category that I would say, while it's very innovative and fascinating, you know, I think everybody in this room will be retired before there are as many 3D printers in people's houses as inkjet printers. Things you can do with a 3D printer, but it's probably best to sit at the Staples or the mailboxes, et cetera, and you go down once or twice a year and 3D print your new cell phone case or something as a personal thing that you need. And then over time, you'll see other kinds of things erupt. But I think, again, if you look into the next 3 to 5 years, it's hard to see that it gets cheap enough and simple enough that you're going to reach any kind of level of those, even that 30 or 40% household penetration. Bob?
Yeah. So I guess I'll just sort of make the question more general, because I was thinking also of augmented reality and maybe 3D printers. You can talk about wearables and
Right.
you know, the fitness devices, or I don't know, drones
Right.
as another category, or you know, is there anything in your opinion that's out there that's in the emerging space today that 10 years, I mean, are there any devices that 10 years from now everyone's going to have one and they don't already have one right now?
So, yes, clearly, I think, I'll give you a plug. You want to come tomorrow, Matt Powell, the sports analyst, and I are going to talk about fitness. But I think clearly some kind of health management tool is going to be on everyone, whether it's just in your phone or on your wrist or in your shoe or whatever. All those kind of things are going to be out there. I think the challenge that I look at when I look at it from this lens is that almost all of those technologies that you mentioned, the mass consumer demand, the way to get those to the consumer is probably going to be very different than what we look at today. So all those health products, I'm going to bet most of those come from the insurance company or from the doctor's office and not from Best Buy, right? Drones would be cool for hobbyists and guys who are a little nerdy, but they have a great potential in flying over crops and checking out the middle of the cornfield. But again, you know, is Best Buy or Staples going to sell that out of the store or from their website? It's probably going to be a B2B sale with big data and analytics behind it to understand what's going on. So I'm actually a little more optimistic in terms of business to business and commercial. And if you think about it, that actually fits into this, because even there, the hardware isn't necessarily what is interesting to everybody. It is there, it's more the data and the information, but we can equate that to the experience, right? I think the thing that hardware enables is more interesting, and once you get to a point where the hardware is pretty good, the enablement at the next level isn't all that valuable, right? That incremental enablement isn't something that I often want to pay for. And that's true, I think, in consumer and in business to business. But when I look at the next $5 billion, $10 billion categories, big chunks of that either feel business related, business channel related, and not quite so consumer focused. Still have a couple minutes? Yeah. So it was good and bad, right? The good part is, I think clearly it brought some of the very basic augmented reality out and maybe makes people think about what they can do the next time. The bad thing is it's a fad. It was a fad, right? It's gone now, basically. I don't know that all those people who set their pizza stores up as Pokestops are getting a lot of traffic that they did, 2 months ago. We did a press release and on power supplies. So in the 2 weeks after that came out, everybody was out buying power banks because it was draining their phones. So you want to do augmented reality on your phone? Maybe we need better power on those phones too. So good and bad. Certainly the one good thing, even better than just showing you what you can do, is really bringing it into the awareness of people and the awareness of the developers, and you can be successful kind of pushing a next generation technology into consumers. Hopefully successful for more than 3 weeks, but you can be successful. Anything else? I got 2 minutes and 27 seconds. So that's probably good for one more question. If not, then I'm going to let you all go. I think we're headed to the gala after this. Let me turn, no, doesn't want to go. There we go. So the gala begins at 6:30. Make sure you bring your badge, check for your seating assignment, bring your ties. That's not going to work so well in this technology-oriented group, but we'll figure that out, right? And thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for your business. Thank you for your patience in listening to me.
This concludes our session. Please relax, refresh, and get ready for the Wang Gala this evening. We'll start with cocktails promptly at 6:30 and continue into an entertainment-filled evening when the soulful dream girl Jennifer Hudson performs in concert with the internationally celebrated Boston Pops to mark